The day the so-called queen of our neighborhood broke into my house started like any quiet Saturday. The kind where you tell yourself you're finally going to unpack that last stack of boxes and maybe make some coffee that isn't instant. I was barefoot on the hardwood floor, scrolling through old emails on my phone, when my front door suddenly shot open so hard it hit the wall with a crack I felt in my teeth. Standing in the doorway like she owned the deed to my soul was Diane Mercer, president of the Maple Crest Reserve HOA. Clutching a clipboard and a smartphone like twin weapons, her lips pressed so tight they might have cut glass. "What is this?" she snapped, not even saying hello. "You're evicted. No good morning. No knock. No permission. Just a verdict." I stayed where I was, a few feet from the entryway, hands relaxed at my sides, heart steady in my chest. Years of dealing with people who thought their title made them untouchable had taught me to control my breathing before I controlled anything else. She brushed past me without waiting for an answer, perfume cutting through the air like sharp citrus and cold steel, heels biting into my floors, eyes already scanning every corner like she was doing a police raid and I'd missed the memo. "Violation of community standards," she muttered. Click. The phone camera flashed at a half-unpacked box. Unauthorized clutter in the foyer. Click. A shot of my boots by the door. Inconsistent decor with Maple Crest guidelines. Click. The sofa. The coffee table. The lamp I hadn't even plugged in yet. To her, nothing in my house was mine. It was evidence. For years, Diane Mercer had treated Maple Crest Reserve like it was her kingdom and everyone else was just renting air under her rule. She wore her title, HOA president, like it came with a crown and scepter. To the board, to the realtors, to the old money folks on the hill, she was organized, detail-oriented, a strong presence. But if you were black, if you were new, if you were just trying to live, she was something else entirely. Every black homeowner knew her face before they knew the street names. They knew about the surprise inspections for people whose skin tone or last name didn't match her preferred image of the neighborhood. They knew about the letters taped to doors for fences a few inches too tall. They knew about the threats of fines over flower beds she called too bold or disruptive to the visual harmony. And they knew, even if no one ever said it out loud, that she didn't treat everyone the same. If you argued, she escalated. If you resisted, she harassed. If you had the nerve to stand your ground, she made your life so uncomfortable that selling your house started to look like freedom. Every for sale sign that went up after one of her crusades, she called that preserving standards. So when a moving truck pulled up 3 weeks earlier in front of the old Langford place at the corner lot, she watched from her driveway like a hawk. I stepped down from the truck in jeans and a t-shirt, sweat on my forehead, brown boxes stacked around me. "My name is Marcus Hale, and that little corner house was supposed to be a fresh start." She saw a black man taking keys to a property she thought she could manage from a distance. That alone irritated her. Later that afternoon, as I carried in the last of the boxes marked kitchen, I saw her walking up the sidewalk, clipboard tucked under her arm like a badge, smile rehearsed. I'd seen that smile in 1,000 offices, polite, mechanical, loaded. "Welcome to Maple Crest Reserve," she said, reaching out a hand that never really relaxed. "I'm Diane Mercer, HOA president. We'll be scheduling your inspection soon. You'll get the notice." I frowned slightly. Inspection? The seller didn't mention anything about that. She tilted her chin up half an inch, the way people do when they want to look down on you, but don't quite have the height. "All homes are subject to periodic compliance reviews," she replied. "I strongly suggest you cooperate. It makes everything smoother." I could have argued. I could have pulled out my closing documents. I could have told her she was overreaching. But I'd learned long ago that the most dangerous thing to someone like her wasn't anger. It was calm. So I gave a small nod. "Thanks for letting me know," I said, and closed the door gently. That gentle closing bothered her more than a slammed door ever could have. From my front window, I watched her walk back to her SUV, posture rigid, smile gone. I couldn't hear the words, but I could see the shape of them on her lips. "We'll see how long he lasts." The next evening, I was in the front yard clipping a few branches off the maple tree that leaned too close to the roofline, trying to make the place feel a little more mine. I brought out a box labeled office files, set it on the porch, and started sorting papers on the small table by the window. Across the street, I saw her curtains move. The queen was watching. By the time the next day rolled around, She'd made up her mind. She wasn't just going to welcome me to the neighborhood. She was going to test me. At noon, her heels echoed down the sidewalk like a countdown clock. Step, 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 all the way to my front door. She stabbed the doorbell with a finger like she was pressing a buzzer on a game show she knew she was going to win. I opened the door, same calm expression, same steady breathing. "Mrs. Mercer," I said, "what can I do for you?" "Yes," she answered, already forcing her way into the moment. "This is an official HOA inspection. I'm here to check for compliance and any violations of our community standards." "I didn't request an inspection," I replied. "You don't request inspections," she said, voice sharpening. "I enforce them. If you have nothing to hide, you won't have a problem letting me do my job." I rested my hand lightly on the edge of the door. "You're not coming in," I said. "That's not how this works." She froze like I'd spoken a language she'd never heard. No one told her no. "Not here. I am the HOA president," she snapped. "I have every right to inspect any property within Maple Crest Reserve." "Not without permission," I answered, completely still. "And I'm not giving it." Silence fell so thick you could almost hear the neighbors holding their breath behind their blinds. I saw two sets of curtains twitch across the street. A dog somewhere stopped barking mid-woof. Her jaw flexed. Something in her eyes hardened. And then, in one sharp move, she shoved the door open with her shoulder and stepped inside my home. That was the moment she crossed a line she could never uncross. She didn't just walk into my house. She invaded it. Her heels dug into the floor with each step, the sound echoing down the hallway like a judge's gavel. She moved through my living room with the entitlement of someone doing a routine inspection instead of committing an illegal search. "Non-standard furniture arrangement," she muttered, lifting her phone. Click. "Unapproved curtain style." Click. "Potential storage hazard." Click. Every picture she took wasn't documentation. It was ammunition. She believed, deep in her bones, that the letters HOA gave her the right to pry into people's lives, step into their homes, and rearrange their sense of security. She wasn't just looking for rule breaches. She was looking for excuses to justify what she had already decided about me. As she walked, I stayed back, leaning against the wall near the foyer, arms folded, eyes following her. I didn't stop her. I didn't yell. I didn't call the police. Not yet, because I wanted her to see it. I needed her to see it. She wandered past the hallway, paused at the open door of my office, took a picture of a stack of folders like they were contraband. Then she turned toward the dining room. Her voice was still going, a constant drizzle of self-importance, improper placement of, and then she stopped, right in the doorway. Her mouth snapped shut. Her hand lowered. Her shoulders went rigid. Because there, in the center of my dining table, framed by nothing but sunlight coming in from the back window, lay a single sheet of paper. White. Clean. Centered like it had been waiting there just for her. On it was a headshot photo of Diane Mercer, taken from the HOA website. Beneath the picture, her full name, her street address, her lot number. And across the middle, in heavy, bold, dark letters, "Eviction notice." I watched the color drain from her face. She stepped closer slowly, phone dangling at her side, clipboard forgotten. The confident HOA president, the neighborhood enforcer, the woman who never hesitated, suddenly moved like someone walking toward the edge of a cliff without knowing where the ground stopped. She picked up the document with both hands, fingers shaking just enough for me to see. Her eyes traced every line. The legal language, the references to lease provisions, the clear, undeniable statement that her right to occupy her house had been revoked. "What is this?" she whispered at first, then louder, anger rushing in to mask the fear. "What is this supposed to mean?" "It means exactly what it says," I replied. She let out a soft, disbelieving laugh that had no joy in it at all. "You think you can evict me? You." She shook the paper at me. "You have no idea who you're talking to. I'm the president of Maple Crest Reserve HOA. I am this community." I straightened up, walked a few steps closer, not aggressive, not looming, just closing the distance between fantasy and reality. "You've made yourself the community," I said quietly. "There's a difference." Her eyes flashed. "You're nobody here. You don't run anything. I've been the one maintaining order. I've kept this neighborhood safe, beautiful, valuable. By bullying people out of their homes." I cut in. "By inventing violations that don't exist in any bylaws. By targeting black families, making up reasons to find them, sending your inspection team to knock on their doors at dawn. Her cheeks flushed a deep red. I don't know what rumors you've heard, but they're not rumors, I said. They're stories. Real ones. About real people. And today, I nodded toward the piece of paper in her hands. You walked into mine. She clenched her jaw, veins appearing at her temples. You don't make the rules here, she said. You never will. This is my neighborhood, my jurisdiction. No, I said calmly, feeling something inside me finally uncoil. I don't make the rules. Her lips curled into a cruel little smirk, thinking she'd won something. Then I finished the sentence. I own them. The smirk died instantly. Her eyes widened, body going still. What did you just say? When I bought this house, I said, I didn't just buy the old Langford property. 6 months ago, the entire Maple Crest Reserve development was quietly sold to a private investment group. I let that sink in for a heartbeat. I am that group. Her mouth opened, but no words came out. Her fingers tightened on the edges of the paper until the corners bent. You're lying, she finally managed. This is some kind of scam. I don't need to lie to you, Mrs. Mercer. I have the deeds. I have the transfer documents. I have every title, every lot, every homeowner agreement on record. And I've had time to review all the complaints with your name attached to them. Her breathing picked up. Her eyes darted around the room as if the walls might confirm or deny what I was saying. You're saying, she swallowed hard, you own my house? I'm saying, I replied, you violated the terms of the occupancy agreement. Repeatedly. Harassment, unauthorized entries, intimidation. And today you decided to break into the property of the man who now owns every building in this neighborhood. I nodded toward the notice. That document in your hand isn't theater. It's reality. You are being evicted. For a moment, the room felt smaller, the air tighter, like the whole house was leaning in to hear her response. She didn't shout. She didn't throw the paper. She didn't lunge at me. Her knees just softened, and she grabbed the back of a dining chair to keep herself steady. Evicted? She whispered, as if saying the word softly might change its spelling. Yes, I said. Evicted. The woman who had built an identity around being unshakable, untouchable, unchallengeable now stood in my dining room, shaking like a loose window in a storm. Her hand clutched the eviction notice so hard the paper crinkled. You can't do this to me, she said at last, voice breaking. I've lived here for 15 years. I built this community. I kept it from turning into. She stopped herself, but I knew exactly how that sentence was going to end. Into something like you. This is my neighborhood, she finished weakly instead. You don't just push me out. I took a breath, slow and steady. Your right to live here was always tied to how you treated the people around you. That's in the documents you never thought anyone else would read. I shrugged slightly. You broke that agreement over and over again. You broke into homes. You threatened people. You made this place hell for anyone who didn't match the picture inside your head. Her lips trembled. I was enforcing standards. You were enforcing yourself, I replied. She glared at me, but the fight in her eyes kept colliding with the panic in her chest. You could see it, the moment when someone realizes they're not the predator anymore. You'll regret this, she snapped suddenly, as if clinging to one last script. I'll find a way to challenge this. I'll call the board. I'll call a lawyer. You can't just walk in here and take everything I've built. You didn't build this place, I said quietly. Families did. Parents did. Kids riding bikes. People grilling in their backyards. Neighbors helping each other shovel snow. You just made yourself the villain in their stories. I stepped aside, gesturing toward the front door. And now their story gets to move on without you. For a second, she just stood there, chest heaving, eyes glossy with tears she refused to let fall. Then she spun around and stormed down the hallway, boots hitting the floor faster than before, not with authority this time, but with desperation. I followed at a distance. When she stepped back out onto the porch, sunlight hit her face, exposing every crack in the image she'd built for herself. She turned around, staring back at me, still gripping the eviction notice like a lifeline. Across the street, blinds that had been half open were now all the way up. A man in a work shirt stood on his porch steps, arms crossed. A woman with a toddler on her hip watched silently from the yard next door. An older couple stood near their mailbox, hands intertwined. People she'd fined, people she'd threatened, people she'd called non-compliant, for the crime of simply existing in ways she didn't approve of. Now they were all watching her. No one stepped forward to stand beside her. No one called out her name with support. No one ran to her defense. The queen had lost her court. "You'll all regret this," she shouted, but even she sounded unconvinced. No one answered. She turned and walked down the path, each step less certain than the last. At the end of the sidewalk, she stopped, glanced back one more time, eyes filled with something raw and unfamiliar. Not power, not pride, just fear. Then she kept walking. I stayed at the door, leaning against the frame, watching her disappear down the street she'd once patrolled like a warden. The neighborhood felt different already. Lighter, quieter, like someone had lifted a weight no one realized they'd been carrying for years. Behind me, the house was still. In front of me, the community was awake in a new way. For the first time in a long time, Maple Crest Reserve belonged to the people who actually lived there, not the woman who used fear to control them. She'd forced her way into my home to prove she was in charge. Instead, she walked back out holding proof that she'd never truly been in control at all. Justice didn't arrive with sirens or fireworks. It arrived on printer paper, signed and sealed. It arrived in the quiet conviction of someone who had the power to stop a bully and finally chose to use it. That was the day the neighborhood finally took a deep breath.